Welcome to the Your Social Media Plan lesson. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to implement prong number 2 of your 3-prong approach and use social media for your business. First though, before we talk about your social media plan, there is one very important distinction you need to understand, and that is that social media is not about selling. One of the most common mistakes I see new entrepreneurs make is to try and go on social media and just share their offers. What happens? Of course, no one takes them up on those offers because no one knows who they are or cares about what they have to sell. So if you're not going to use social media to sell, then what are you going to use it for? You're going to use it for connecting with potential customers. If you remember back to the overarching strategy that we discussed in the previous section of this module, where everything in your business boils down to finding leads, qualifying prospects, and then making sales, social media is about helping you find more leads. After implementing prong number 1, you've at least temporarily exhausted your lowest hanging fruit in terms of leads. That's where social media comes in. It's one of the fastest ways to find and connect with new leads. More than that, though, it's about building relationships with potential customers. And I say leads and customers so that it's easier to make the connection between what we're talking about here and how it relates to the principles we've already covered. But at the heart of it, your leads are people. Social media is about building relationships and connecting with people. We'll cover what to actually share on social media in the next lesson. But first, I want you to understand the 4 key activities behind how to connect with people on social media. The first key is that you have to give. Give value, give entertainment. Show why people should care about you and your business in the first place. Second, you have to participate. You can't only give, as again, social media is about connecting, and that is a two-way street. You need to participate with what others are sharing and giving. Answer questions, give feedback, make others feel seen to build that connection. Third, you need to be targeted with how and who you connect with because your goal is to build genuine relationships with potential leads. This includes searching for people who are asking questions related to what you do, or simply being selective about who you interact with because you do have limited time and resources. And finally, you need to engage others. This is different from participating because as a participant, you are engaging with content that someone else has shared. What I mean by engaging others is that you have to create content that gets other people to engage. Again, we'll go over how to create content that does this in the next lesson, but before we do, it's important for you to know these principles so you know what to do beyond just sharing content because that is not enough. Let's talk about the 3 steps to your social media plan. Step 1 is to find 2 to 3 groups or forums where your potential customers are spending their time online. There are 3 places where you want to focus your search. The first 2 places are social media platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn. That's because these are high engagement platforms where you can truly connect with people versus Twitter or Instagram, for example, where users are only reading a few characters or seeing an image. First, let's talk about Facebook groups. These are free public groups where people with similar interests and goals gather to share information and engage with one another. And what's so great about these groups is that you get access to an existing audience of potential clients that are gathered in one place without having to do the work to build that audience, because someone else has already done that work for you. On the other hand, you have LinkedIn, which is a professional networking platform. In many ways, it's the corporate equivalent of Facebook. If your ideal clients are much more active on LinkedIn than in Facebook groups, then you should be incorporating LinkedIn into your marketing strategy. The implementation guides in this section will walk you through setting up your marketing plan on each of these platforms. Because Facebook groups are the most common source of leads for new entrepreneurs, that's what we're going to focus on using for your social media plan in this lesson. That being said, if you belong to that small group of new entrepreneurs whose potential clients are not super active in Facebook groups, The principles that you're going to learn about how to use social media and what kind of content to share can be applied to any forum type, platform, or website. You should already know where your audience is active online from your market research, but if you need to do some more research, you can use the terms listed here to help you get started in Googling for where to find your clients online. Wherever your clients are to be found, make sure you understand the principles that we're covering in this lesson and the next so you can customize the tactics for your industry and your business. Once you find 2 to 3 online groups where your potential clients hang out, you're going to implement a Be Seen strategy for 2 weeks. This strategy is simple. On day 1, introduce yourself and what you do in these groups. Don't link to your site or profile or anything that might be seen as promotional. Then, for the next 2 weeks, post non-promotional content, which we'll go over how to create in the next lesson. The reason you're not doing any promotion of yourself or your business for the first 2 weeks is because you need to first build awareness of you and your business and establish a relationship before making an offer of any sort. During these 2 weeks, to build your brand awareness quickly over a short period of time, you need to be active daily in each of the groups you've selected. Remember, the goal of these first 2 weeks is to become top of mind for your audience and to become known in a short amount of time. You're going to be able to do that both through doing the 4 activities that we discussed earlier in this lesson and through the quality of your content, which we'll discuss in the next lesson. During these first 2 weeks, that's all you're going to do. Do not jump the gun and create your own group or start promoting. We're going to get to all of that in the next module when we talk about sales. But for any of those things we're going to cover to work, you need to first build a foundation following this strategy. As you implement this plan, I want to remind you to be scientific as we discussed in the previous lesson. If you don't get engagement right away, test different angles, different messages, different groups until you figure out what works for you and your audience. This is a process, and this is the time to be learning and gathering data because that's what's going to ensure your success when in step 3, you create your own Facebook group and start implementing the strategies in the next module to drive sales, both in your group and others. As we discussed at the beginning of this lesson, you have 4 key social media activities: sharing your own content, participating in conversations, searching for content, posts, and questions from potential clients that you can give feedback on, and engaging others via your content. That's a good amount of activity, so let's talk about how to do all of this without going crazy and without spending all day in front of your computer. My recommendation is the 3x15 rule. 3 times a day, you spend 15 minutes in your groups or wherever you're establishing yourself, and during those 15-minute blocks, you're focused on just one of the key activities. For example, your first 15-minute block of the day might be dedicated to sharing your content. Your second 15-minute block might be dedicated to participating and or searching for discussions to participate in. And your last block of the day might be dedicated to responding to conversations that you've initiated or have been participating in. I do want to note that sometimes these blocks might take longer than 15 minutes, especially as you become better known and have more conversations going on. But at that point, you'll have a better handle on your schedule, and 15 minutes is all you need to start. If you follow this 3x15 rule consistently every single day, you'll be attracting your audience to you through your content and building relationships through your engagement and participation. And if you're consistent, less than an hour a day is all you need to start building relationships and to become known so that when you start promoting your offers, people actually want them and you actually make sales. Here is an example schedule to summarize what we just covered. This is the exact schedule I followed when I started my first online business while working a demanding job. During the weekend, I'd set aside 1 to 3 hours just to brainstorm and batch create my content. And again, we'll talk about content creation in the next lesson, so don't worry about that right now. Then, during the week, you'll notice I followed the 3x15 rule with 3 slots of 15 minutes per day. The times shown on this calendar are when most groups are the most active, and it works out well for you too, especially if you're in a 9 to 5, because these times usually coincide with your before work time, your lunch break, and your after work time. In this lesson, you learned what social media is really about. You also learned the key activities to do to leverage social media effectively for your business, what to do for your first 2 weeks to set the stage for the sales tactics we'll be covering in the next module, and how to manage it all with your schedule. Your next steps now are to move on to the Your Social Media Content lesson, where we'll cover what kind of content you need to share.